Please allow me to introduce my friend Raj Kannan. Thank you, Raj.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Can everyone hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we are gathered here, as the title says, leading through change. And so we're gathered here to spend the next 45 minutes in terms of what can we collectively do to continue to be leaders and to be good leaders, right? And I'll say this from my career and people who have had careers. If you can count in your hand 2 or 3 good bosses you've had, you're very blessed, right? A lot of times people don't get good leadership. They're very good from an expertise perspective. They're very good from a content perspective, but they're not great leaders. There's a difference between being managers and leaders, right? And you see that often being talked about. So today, we were going to talk about what is it to be a leader, right? And that is a very broad topic. We could spend the entire day here. So I have to really think about what to do in the next 45 minutes so that it can be tangible enough for you when you walk out of this room. What are those ways that I can think about being a good leader? So, first and foremost, I want to make this as interactive as possible. People who have taken the courage to sit in the first row are going to be picked on, right? But I think it would be good to kind of make it as participative as possible, because the last thing I want to do is 45 minutes of a monologue, and then you go, all right, that's 45 minutes I'll never get back in my life. Or, this was good. There were some nuggets that I can take back. I hope it's the latter, right? So change, we talk about change, right? We live in interesting times. In fact, I would say we live in one of the most exciting times in human history. Not that I've lived in every century to be able to make that statement, but it looks like we are absolutely on the threshold of fundamentally changing even the world and how the world could change in unprecedented ways. You've got fusion energy. We're making significant advances in there that can fundamentally reshape the way we live. Radically extending life. Last time I just dropped a statement to Paige when she was visiting one of my companies that I was running, said immortality is an achievable goal. Right? We used to say death and taxes. You can definitely assume that's guaranteed. But immortality in 200, 300 years, could we get there? And then if you think about artificial general intelligence, these all profoundly could change the way humans live. But what's interesting is all these groundbreaking technologies that are happening, they're all happening at the same time. If you look at historically, Industrial Revolution, it was sequential. But now a lot of things are converging. And so when you look at the convergence, that could fundamentally change the way humans live. But what's interesting with all that change, I'm here to say that the basic principles of leadership, leading people, does not change. And that's the focus for this session here for the next 45 minutes or so. So with that, let me start with our brave souls. I know Roz, I haven't met the others. So Roz, just shout out, what does leadership mean to you? A word or a statement?
Leading by example.
Okay, leading by example. Anybody else? Integrity.
Being a giver.
A giver.
Impact.
Impact.
Persistence.
Persistence. Okay. We call that grit, as Dean Harris always says. That's the ECU pirate grit. Inspiring. What was that? Role model, leading by example, right? That could be anybody else. Leader. When you think about a person that you admire as a leader, what's their thing that you really admire about?
Vision.
Visionary.
Efficiency, Are you in accounting?
Not
No.
yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
The ability to get a group of people to work together to a common objective.
Yeah, influence people. I'll Roz, I am putting in efficiency too, so. It's important to get to your destination in the most effective way and not spend too much money. Inspiring a group of people for a common objective, right?
Mobilize.
Courage.
Courage, somebody said courage? That's a fantastic.
Vision.
Inspiring could be, I'm just going to put it here, okay. Vision,
Bold.
bold, which is sort of a courage thing, but yeah, okay. As you can see, right, when you think about leadership, there's a lot of things that come up. But when you look at a good leader, it's multifactorial. There's not just one thing that makes them a good leader. And so what I did was kind of bucket it into what I thought would be useful in a framework, right? We're in a university setting, so I had to put it into some sort of a framework. Over the 30 years, what I think about, what's a good leader? It starts with you. Who are you? What motivates you? What are your blind spots? What are your derailers? What gets you up in the morning? How do you regulate your emotions? When somebody says something that is completely opposite to what you think, how do you react? How do you challenge your own beliefs and assumptions? How do you adapt? But at the same time, how do you remain authentic? You could spend an entire semester on what we call managing oneself. And there's actually a fantastic book by Peter Drucker that I would highly recommend. It's called Managing Oneself. Peter Drucker is one of the most prolific management writers that I've always had the deepest respect for. His books are like gospel to me. I'm a Hindu, so I shouldn't say Bhagavad Gita. But it's gospel, right, for me. So to really read through Managing Oneself is the starting point. How do your words and actions impact other people? Can you sense the way you speak, the way you act? What impact does it have on the people around you? That's called self-awareness, right? And I'll go deeper into that one. The next one is know your business. There's no substitute for that, right? You gotta know your product, your technology, your service, and be obsessive about your customers. Who are you serving? Literally, if you have any business, right? Matt Chris was here today. One of the wonderful opportunities I had was to have dinner with him yesterday. And the first thing I asked is, who do you serve at investment? Who do you serve? Do you see the word serve? Every one of us serve somebody. That's how we get our rewards. We serve them better than anyone else in the world. That's what Apple is where Apple is today. They do it better than anybody else. Right? Who do you serve? What do you do in terms of solving a problem? Where's your competition? What's the macro environment? What could potentially derail you? And the favorite statement in any business CEO's lingo is, I would rather obsolete myself than be obsoleted by somebody else. Right? Think about Blockbuster Video. I know you guys I don't even know you know what videos are. Right? VCRs. We used to have it. We used to stand in line and used to beg and have contacts with the Blockbuster guys saying, can you please make sure that movie is like, next is me on the line. Right? That went out of business when Netflix came around. I would rather obsolete myself. Right? Same thing in a job. Think about how do you obsolete your own job. Don't be territorial. That's knowing your business. So, and then the last part is knowing your people. How do you relate to people? You hear the word, and this is the third leadership conference I'm attending, and this consistent word I hear, network. How do you build a network? How do you build meaningful relationships with people? And if you really look at this, the 3 frameworks for being a leader is very akin to a personal journey, which is health, wealth, and relationships. If you're not in good health, not physical health, also mental health, what do you do to calm your mind? How do you take breaks during the day? How do you get your energy back up again? Or do you just go from the time you woke up, you're on the phone, to the time you go to bed, you're on the phone? It's not a tenable way to be a good leader. How do you make sure your health, and both mental and physical and spiritual, how do you keep that in balance to be able to relate to other people? Wealth. There's joy in working. People who think work is joy. There's a huge part of joy that I got from my work. I was good at it. And yes, there's family. There's your other things that bring you joy. But work, in knowing the impact you're making, don't cut that joy out of your life. Don't let people tell you about work-life balance and all that. If that's joyful to you, do it. And then knowing your people, which is relationships. So I would say, before I go to the next slide, keep a journal on health, wealth, and relationships. Simple journal. It's in a notebook. Put health, wealth, and relationships. Wealth is skill building. What did I do this week, for example, that enables me to be better at what I want to do? Health is, did you meditate? Did you go to sleep on time? Did you hydrate yourself? Did you figure out ways? Just have a journal. Relationships. What did you do to invest in your relationships? And remember, the closest people in our life are the ones we ignore. Right? We give phenomenal connections to the people that are our bosses, right? But not to the people that we really care about, our friends, our family, and people that you're really close with. What did you do this week? Did you send them a text? Hey, how you doing? Right? Think about it. If you have a journal, you can see every week in these 3 buckets, and that's exactly akin to what leadership is about. So here's a granular breakdown of each one of them, right? So knowing yourself. A lot of people think about weaknesses. My 2 cents, your weaknesses that you consistently hear are your weaknesses. You can mitigate them, but you cannot eliminate them. Right? Know your strengths. Usain Bolt is a runner. Let him run. Don't tell him to go swim. Hey, have you tried swimming? He was born to run. Right? Know what you're born for. What is the one thing that you can give a run for anyone else in the world? Right? Focus on your strength. Core values. I was in a session, Tricia Dale, she was talking about PB Mayer's core values. Core values, every company has them. And it's usually words like respect, integrity. I think those are table stakes. Right? I'm not going to give you a cookie because you said you're honest. I expect you to be honest. That's minimum expectations. And you have to ask yourself, what are your core values? You have them, by the way. You just haven't given it time to figure out what are my core values where I draw the line and say, I will not cross this line. What is that? Take some time to know your core values, because when life becomes a crisis, when things are really ambiguous, guess what you're doing? You're going to reach deep inside you and draw on your core values. You just don't know what those words are. Take the time. And I will say, personal anecdote, my daughter once asked me, Dad, what are your core values? And I started rattling off respect, integrity. And she goes, Dad, not your company's core values. I said, what are your core values? I had never given it time to think through, what are my values? Do they serve me? Do they come useful to me? Write it down. Write it down on a piece of paper. Commitment. For example, one of the things I had was commitment. commitment to my family. There's nothing that I would not do and walk away. My family was my family. I would support them no matter what. But I had to think through as one example of a core value that I held, but I just did not understand. Time and energy. If everything is not fair in this world, but there's one thing that is fair, the clock and your energy. We all have 24 hours. I don't care if you're Elon Musk and you have $200 billion, you still only have 24 hours. How you spend your time and how you spend your energy determines your life. If there's nothing else in the session that you take away, remember, time and energy. Don't waste time on things that are irrelevant. Don't waste energy arguing or debating when it's irrelevant. You're not going to change anything, and you spend 2 hours and you're drained. Time and energy, if you look at the most successful leaders, they're so brutally disciplined about their calendars. Read any successful story. What did they do? 4 a.m. They wake up. They're out there in the gym. 5 a.m. They're like clockwork. They're like military precision. They're not standing around chatting. They don't have time for that. Time and energy, if there's anything, and then the 80-20 rule. It's very true. Whether you're in sales, ask Richard Tooley. If you're in sales, he'll tell you that 20% of customers will always give you 80% of your business. Period. Keep them close. The other 80% is business development. Maybe one day they'll be the 20%. But your 20% will always, and life is like that. Your 20% of what you do is really giving you 80% of your results. What are those 20% in your day? Write down your journal. Have a journal. I always say, have a journal. Write down. What did you do today? How much time did you spend on things that matter, supporting your goals, what were your goals, and things that didn't matter? And you'll find out that it's a very good way of finding out, where am I spending my time and energy? A wise person said, Kylie, I can tell you what your future is. And Kylie said, really? How? He said, just tell me what you think every single day and what do you do? Where do you spend your time? And if I got that down on a piece of paper, I can tell you what you're going to be doing in 20 years. It's that simple. What you focus on and what you work today is what you're going to be in 10, 15 years. It's not that difficult to predict. Solicit and provide active feedback. We all want to grow. We all want to feel that we're adding value, even in our personal life, right? Our spouse, our girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever we have, we want to say that, hey, I am of some value to you. Do I add value to your life? It's the same thing in the work world. We want to feel that we are providing value. At the same time, it's an innate human feeling that we have. We want to grow. How do you do that? The only way to do that is I can go to next and say, next, tell me how I did that in that session. What could I have done better? Right? Lee, sorry. What could I have done better? What do you think I could have focused on better, right? Ask, solicit feedback. Lee would be happy to tell you how many times we have the courage to go to someone and say, hey, what could I have done differently? Yeah, people always say, yeah, you did great, you did an awesome job, it was really good. No, great, thank you. What do you think I could have done better? That is the mark of a leader. Because they're constantly trying to figure out what I can do better, what's more relevant. Lastly, on this know yourself, it's monk-like. And it comes with age and maturity, I can say that for myself. Being aligned on what you think, what you say, and what you do is very difficult. That's why we have stress in our lives. That's why everybody loves a baby. You know why? Because exactly what they think, what comes out of their mouth, and what they do is completely aligned. And we lose that feature as we grow up. Because we know we can't say what's in our head. Wait, what you think, what you do, how you act. When it's aligned, it's almost monk-like Zen. You can feel these people in the room. They're true to themselves. So that's knowing yourself. Let me pause a minute. Any questions? Because this is perhaps the most important platform for being a good leader, is to know yourself. Yeah.
How long does it take for yourself?
Great question. I think every year when you finish the year, one of the things you ought to say is, what did I think I was going to achieve? What did I achieve and what could have been better? And that is a self-exercise that you can do, but you can also do it with family and friends. I always say, if you listen carefully at the dinner table, your family in particular will give you unadulterated feedback if you're willing to listen. They will tell you. You may not like it, and you'll say, stop. But listen. They love you. The reason someone is giving you feedback is because I care about you. It's not to put you down, right? So forget about how they said it. People always say, yeah, but you could have said it in a different way, right? Why did you start with like, I suck? Okay, I suck is not feedback, that's criticism, right? So think about feedback. When I'm telling Kylie or Raj here is, Raj, I think you're great, but what could even make you better is this. When you use language like that, okay, I'm good at knowing which words to use, but what if I said, Raj, you can run much better than that, right? And then he goes, that's demotivating. Don't focus on the content, focus on the data. There's a useful nugget from that person, so don't get carried away. You know, he could have said it much better. Why focus on that? You want to get better, focus on the data. Somebody else had a question, knowing yourself. Knowing yourself, feedback is the way to really get to know yourself.
What's your favorite business book and why? Or your favorite book?
I think fast, think slow. Daniel Kahneman. There's so many. But Peter Drucker, Clayton Christensen. There's just so many authors. It's not one favorite book because you learn so much from different business books. Yes.
In becoming aligned on your thoughts, words, and actions, since most of us would not be, what would you change first? Your actions and words to shift your thoughts, or your thoughts to shift your words and actions?
I would always start with your thoughts. Your thoughts are your foundations. Your thoughts are built on your beliefs and assumptions that you grew up with. So challenging those is the most difficult area. I don't want to go into religion, but religion, that's why religion is such a dangerous topic to go to, because people have very, very strong foundations in it, right? Their belief system comes from there. So your thoughts, what your thoughts have to be always. So when I meet with Lee, I have to always take out my judgments about Lee and listen to what Lee has to say with an open mind, right? Which means there's an underlying thought saying, Lee's opinionated, you know that, right? Like I do not know him. I'm just picking on Lee right now.
Yes.
Oh, Lee,
I was about to say, ask his wife, I'll agree.
yeah, right? But the way to really take that thought out is good, because now you're listening non-judgmentally. And then that translates into your words, and then it translates into actions. Always remember, when you meet somebody, take your preconceived lens or bias off. When you go to meeting rooms, take that off. It's the most difficult thing to do, because we as humans, we already know. Interesting character, right? Like, don't do that. I think thoughts, then words, or actions and words. But
Right.
thoughts is your fundamental. Yep.
How do you find the courage to be honest with yourself?
Great question. I think this is like somebody said courage. I love that, right? If you think about leadership, the one thing that in a world global survey that comes up is courage at the expense of your career, right? But you're not going to back down because that is just wrong, right? And you say, I can't be part of this. You have to know when to fight and when to salute the flag. There's no point dying on the sword. But you should be true to yourself and say, I'm going to influence it, but I'm going to influence it from the inside. There are things, and this is where your value system matters. Because if it crosses a value system for you, then I draw the line and say, listen, I respect the decision you've made, but I can't be part of this moving forward, right? That requires courage. Because a lot of people are thinking about paychecks, bills. Are you kidding me? What am I going to do next month, right? But that ability to know which battles to fight and how are you going to influence it from within them, right? Try to get to a position of strength. And when people say, by the way, in North Carolina, I married a person from here. Her father was a school teacher, school principal. He always used to say, money is bad. Money is bad. Don't go after money. I absolutely hated that. Because money is a fantastic catalyst for change. If you have $100 million in your pocket, trust me, you can do a lot of good stuff that people will pay attention to you. Same thing if you had like a couple of dollars in your pocket, nobody wants to hear from you. Even though the same thing, you're exactly saying what that $100 million guy is saying or $1 billion guy is saying. But the problem is money is a great catalyst for change. And so go after money because money helps make the changes that you want to.
In lining your thoughts, you mentioned Drucker, but I can't help but think of an old book, Covey.
Stephen Covey, the 7
Yeah,
habit. Yep.
Understood.
Absolutely. There's just so many great books. And by the way, I can send Paige or somebody a list of books that I love, the top 10 books, and then you guys can look at it, get it on Audible, and go through it. Next one, knowing your business. The first thing I wrote was curiosity. Not being curious kills you. So when you join a company, right, when you graduate, the first thing I look for is, how curious are you? And it comes up in the questions you ask. You're constantly trying to, what does that mean? You're trying to learn. In sales, Richard will tell you, what is it to be curious? Be curious about your customer. Hey, tell me where can I be helpful to you? Forget my product. I'm not here to sell you, but I am here to figure out how my product fits into your lifestyle. That requires you to be genuinely curious. If you're disagreeing with somebody, let's say I'm going to pick on Kieran, right? Kieran just says something totally opposite. I said, we should go north, Kieran. The data is so unequivocal. We should go north. And he goes, I 100% disagree. We should go south. Right? What do? What an idiot! You can see that, by the way, in our country today. When we should all be okay with disagreements, calling each other names and all of that is not. Then what I should do as a good leader is, tell me more. What brought you to that conclusion? What data did you look at? What am I doing? I'm being curious. You can actually enhance your personal relationships with someone that you disagree with by being curious. You know what happens in a human being when someone is curious about me? It's a mirror image. I like you. You're actually you're being curious about my idea. You're asking me questions versus telling me north. Any blind person would see that the north is the right way to go. That doesn't help, right? But it requires you to be what? Self-awareness, mindfulness, and being able to say, what is it that I'm missing in Kieran's thesis that he so passionately believes that we should go south? Right? Maybe I might learn that my hypotheses and my assumptions were incorrect. What a great trait of a leader, to know that I stand corrected. Your logic makes total sense. Jenna, I did not think it the way you were thinking. I never thought it that way. What a wonderful way for a leader to be adaptable. People will follow you because they know you listen to logic and you're not ideological and say, north it is, man. I mean, what part of north did you not understand? Right? So make informed choices, good decisions. I always say, Life is about choices. Business is about choices. You can't have it. You can't like have a strategy of I want everything. Even Apple, if you think about it, iPhone went after the consumers first. They never cared about corporate America. They never built their business with IT departments. Like, all of us wanted an iPhone, and our IT departments would say, no, BlackBerry it is, right? Because Apple would not return a single company's IT call. They wanted consumers first. Look at the focus that they have. Look at what they wanted. Apple, a company that did not have any problems in resources, right? Be obsessively customer focused. I mean, if there's one thing Steve Jobs teaches us very well, just be obsessive about who you're serving. If you're serving students as a teacher, you can see the passion. I want you, as Dean Harris just said today, they want you to become more successful than all of us. I want you to be more successful than me. That is what a good person wants. When you leave, we parents think about that, right? We want our children to have better lives than us. Why can't you then take that same philosophy to the people you serve? And in some ways, we do serve our children. God knows, right? But that's the same philosophy, and you can feel it in a good leader that he cares about me. He really wants me to be ahead of him or her, the way he's advising me and counseling me and saying, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So that's knowing your business, and I was touching on knowing your people, right? The few things I wanted to say here. Knowing your people, if there's one thing I know about being a CEO, it's not how wonderfully knowledgeable you are about your products or service. The one skill that matters, in my opinion, being at the top, is knowing who is the talent, recruiting them, and retaining them. That's your ticket to success. Identifying talent is one of the most difficult things to do, especially in today's world, because everybody knows how to interview well. Because Google gives you all the answers. People go to ChatGPT and say, tell me about yourself. Oh, there's like 3 versions of tell me about yourself. I'll load up my resume and let ChatGPT tell me exactly. Tell me about yourself. What an interesting story. How do you know? Can they do the job? Can I work with this person? Where can this person go to in our company? Be curious about people and inspiration. I talked about curiosity about business. Curiosity about people is your ticket to being a good leader. Be curious. We're all different. If I go to Paige and say, Paige, what inspires you? She'll give me a very different answer than what Richard will give me. What truly inspires you, Richard? And then remember these things, because that's what matters. Because Richard took time to tell you what inspires me. So when you have to leverage him in a project or something, you know how to be a good leader and leverage Richard, because you know he's not inspired. I'm just making stuff. Not inspired by money, but Paige might be. So how do I think about my leadership style with both of them? Right? Inspire more, instruct less. If there's one thing, nobody wants a micromanager. That's the extreme. Right? Nobody wants somebody to constantly say, Paige, just wanted to check in and see, are you still on that report that I asked? Paige goes, I know what I need to get done. Inspire more, instruct less. Right? Feel the energy. This is something that I didn't do before because I was so caught up in my world. Now I can be talking to Jenna or to Raj, and mentally I'm feeling his energy as he's talking or as she's talking. I'm going, is he reciprocating the energy I have? If you're not looking for it, you're not going to find it. Feel the energy. By the way, for parents, right? Your parent, if you're in a sucky mood, your parent, the first thing is like, oh God, hey, what's wrong? At work, how many people come and ask you that? Right? Simple things. It's not rocket science, right? It's really thinking through. I can see somebody who was always energetic, talkative, and today he's just being quiet. hey Kieran, is everything okay? You're not yourself. Be curious. Kieran will say nothing. Yeah, thanks for asking, right? But that little connection, Kieran knows he's a good leader. He observes, right? Practice tough love, having real conversations with your people. If they're not meant to be in that position, either coach them to be successful or coach them out. Those are the only two choices you have. You cannot keep somebody in the organization that is not a good fit. I'm not saying that you should fire people immediately. You should try and give them the chance, saying, is there something wrong? Is the training or resources? Are you overwhelmed? Have you got too much on your plate? Do you know what you need to get done? Are you clear about your responsibilities? Maybe those are the questions first, like a physician. You kind of diagnose the problem. But once you determine that no matter what support and help I give you, you're not, like in sales, there are people who are not going to be good at sales no matter how many training programs, even Richard Twilling's academy is not going to help them. You've got to have an honest conversation with them and say, I don't think this is your cup of tea. That's just me, right? And then have that conversation. Yes?
Having that conversation with the person maybe towards
Great question. So I think let them talk first. Don't go and give them your thesis, right? Why do you think we're not being able to make progress? Why do you think? What could have been better? Think about, let them talk. They'll actually pretty much give you the words that you've been wanting to say, right? And then ask them good, open-ended, non-judgmental questions in your conversations. Don't say what you think, right? If I'm a good manager and a good leader, I'd say, hey, how do you think would have this issue? Well, Raj, I've got like 60 things to do, and you are always on my back about getting this. Okay, so is it this job description? Is it a responsibility that we need to? In that iterative conversation, at some point, it'll come up. No, she doesn't have that much on her plate. This was a job that needed to get done in X amount of time, but it's taking Y amount of time. What is it that first you always have to have that feeling like, how can I help you achieve your goals? Right? That's a good manager, a good leader. But if that conversation after that point doesn't happen, then you have to have that honest conversation saying, I think you're going to be great in other areas. Here's what I think. But I think this particular position doesn't serve your strengths. See my words? I'm not devaluing that person. I'm actually telling him you'd be great. Remember the breakups? I mean, every woman who's broken up with me saying, you're a great guy. It's fantastic, right? Oh God, stop. You're really an awesome guy. But not for me, right? It's simple from personal life to professional. Right?
So in order to have a successful business or a team or organization, you have to have a good executive team, you have to have a good team to lead those people. What's the best way of making that team up for the success of the organization?
Great question. So the first thing is knowing yourself and not expecting other people to be like you. So if you work hard 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, that's you. Don't expect others to do that. Look at everybody and say, what can I leverage? What is it like Kieran brings to the table that I can totally leverage, and he brings something to the table that no other person in the world can. That's all I need from Kieran, right? Don't expect people to exactly be like you. What's the point, right? Hire good people, hire them for their energy, for their enthusiasm, for their drive, for their integrity, for their intellectual ability. You have all these tests, right, during the interview. But then at the end of the day, let them run. Give them the resources and let them be successful. Yes?
Related to retaining top talent. So once you have somebody who's moving up to one of these really high levels, I think it's a lot less about the money and it's about other things that you can offer them. So what are strategies to retaining people who are obviously going to be very in demand with other organizations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So retaining talent, right? It's a topic we can spend an entire day on. Like I said, Richard could be different than Paige. It matters in knowing who your top talent is, right? 5%, 10% of the employee population, you earmark saying these people can get to the boardroom, can get to the C-suite one day, right? Each one of them is driven by something else, right? So one person could be, I just want to get to the C-suite, but I want to be in finance and accounting, and I want to be the world's expert on finance. Like anything and everything in the finance world, you come to me. Somebody else would want to say that I want to keep stretching myself and go into areas that I'm not comfortable with. Right? I've never been in manufacturing, but I really want to learn supply chain and manufacturing. Well, I've always been in sales and marketing. How do I learn supply chain and manufacturing? That could be another way to retain talent. And then long-term incentives, right? If you do this, if you do that. So there's only two things in a career that I always look for in any person, and it's called two things like performance currency and relationship currency. Right? I watch you in terms of how do you perform in your day-to-day job. You have to deliver, by the way, right? You have to be able to achieve your goals. And then relationship, how do you connect with other people in the organization? That's very easy. Get a 360 feedback. As a performance thing, I always like if Kieran was working for me, what I would do is, Kieran, tell me all the people that you worked with this year on projects, and he'll say, I worked with Hayden, I worked with Christian. So what I'll do is not personally characterizing him, but I will give feedback to say, Christian, can you just articulate for me, how was Kieran in articulating the objectives? How did he carry the project through? Right? Not personally asking like, was he great? No, ask specific business questions and you'll get the answers you need. And that feedback helps you to say, how is his relationship currency and how is he performing? And last slide I wanted to show you is, what's an ideal leader, right? And the first two are outcomes-based. The next three are more who they are. So someone, I think many of this was captured here in the feedback that I got at the start of the session. Someone who brings out the best in people. By the way, I can tell you, you don't need a title, you don't need a fancy title or some responsibility to be a leader. The simple question to ask is, are you positively influencing or impacting someone's life? And if you are, you're already a leader. What leaders do, really leaders that we talk about, they do it at a scale that impacts hundreds of thousands of people. It's like cooking for one person versus cooking for 1,000 people. Now you're talking scale, you don't know how much salt to add, you have no, that's what leadership, when we talk about leaders, but if you can do it at a micro level, and all of us have, right? I know of my friend that I had an influence on. Today, that friend, because of me, is doing something different. That's such a wonderful feeling in your heart. And if you have that, I have news to tell you. You're already, if people say, do you have leadership skills? You do. That's my basic definition of being a leader. How are you positively influencing the people in your orbit? Just the people in your orbit. You don't have to be Steve Jobs and change the world. Right? That's a starting point. Someone who executes and delivers results. People always talk about leadership. At the end of the day, you gotta deliver. Results matter. Can you show me what you did? Okay, so you took over. What happened? What happened to EBITDA? What happened to the P&L? What happened to the balance sheet? What happened to the product share? What happened to the people? It's very easy. Someone who makes themselves and others accountable. This is key. A leader has to say, the buck stops with me. I don't know which president said that, but it's been a long time since any president in the United States said that anymore. The buck stops with me. You've got to get up and take responsibility. You are the leader. You're the CEO. When good things happen, a good leader always says, it's my people. It's the board. When the proverbial SHIT happens, the CEO has to stand up and say, I could have done better. There's no hiding. That's a leader. By the way, in any relationship, anything that you have, always first ask, what could I have done differently here? It's a fantastic statement to ask. Instead of immediately saying, seriously, Kylie, you know Raj? Oh my God, he's like exhausting. And I tried, right? That is a natural, it's called your defense lawyer. It's in your head. There's a lawyer inside you say, Kylie, I got you. I'm protecting you, right? Find that lawyer and say, what could I have different? What could I have done differently? How could this outcome be different? When you do that, you're a leader. Because you're looking inward now, right? Someone who knows when to lead and when to follow. Anybody in a relationship should know this. Right? Do not think you're the leader, especially in a home, you're not. You're not a leader, stop. Right? There's a person right next to you who's your equal. Unfortunately, it's called co-CEO. It's a very different, that's why companies don't have it. We have one CEO, right? Someone authentic, I talked about that. But authenticity and adaptability are two opposite ends of the spectrum. Authenticity, people always say, that means what he says, he's always stuck to it, he's never changed. But at the same time, you have to be adaptable. I got new information. I don't think I was having the right assumptions. And it's a fine line. And I just put this thing because it's pirate grit. Success is not final. It's never is. Because somebody is breathing down your neck. It's never. You're never going to keep that gold medal. Somebody will beat you. So it's never final. Don't rest on your laurels. Failure is never fatal. Never. And that's one of the most difficult things to tell young people nowadays, I think. In my mentoring sessions, when they hit a stumbling block and a setback, it crushes them. And I always feel like, dude, just get up. You've got your entire life ahead of you. You're going to win. And by the way, it's okay. You got to punch, you fell down. And it is a courage to continue that counts. And that is pirate grit. With that was the end of my session. Maybe that was a no.